Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Sallallahu wasallam ala Nabiina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een. Amma ba'd, we are continuing our study of the work that is entitled Usul al-Sunnah, that is entitled Foundations of the Sunnah, as this is the work of Ahmed ibn Muhammad ibn Hanbal, rahimahullah ta'ala. And we have come to the point within this work where the author has stated, وَكُلُّ بِدْعَةٍ فَهِيَ ضَلَالَةٌ, and every innovation, it is misguidance. And the statement of the author as well, وَتَرْكُ الْخُصُومَاتِ وَالْجُلُوسِ مَعَ أَصْحَابِ الْأَهْوَاءِ, and leaving off argumentation and sitting with the people of desires. And we spoke to the meanings of these two passages last week, and we wanted to take an academic look at some of the evidences and the viewpoints and what scholarship is stated concerning these particular points. So, firstly, what we should state. Concerning the matter of taking knowledge from a person of innovation, we should firstly understand that the Salaf, they held three different views on this issue. The ancient Muslims, they held three different views on this issue. And of course, what we're stating now, or what we're going to be stating, some of this may be the first time some of us are hearing this type of detail. So we're going to ask for your patience, inshallah ta'ala, as we work through it. What we're going to state is going to be premised on what we have stated last week, a lot of which we will not be reiterating at this point so that we can move forward. One thing that we will mention that we did state last week, when it comes to a person of innovation, we mentioned that a person of innovation is of how many different types? 4 different types. Good. So it is not just all one thing. It's not binary where it's this or that, right? But rather there's a range. And we find the ancients interacting with each one appropriately. And we also find difference with regards to the time period that they were interacting with them, meaning the setting. If it was a setting where the people of Sunnah were the majority in the authority, the way that they would interact with people of innovation was different during the times when the people of innovation were the authority and the majority. And all of this takes foresight. All of this has within it, we must take into consideration weighing out what is called the masalih and the mafasid, the pros and the costs of things, the benefits and the harms of things. But we stated that the people of innovation are 4 different types. What are those 4 different types? Who recalls? Okay, a person that's upon innovation, this person has knowledge upon innovation. Like they know and understand what they're doing, right? Often this will be a person who is learned, right? Who's erudite. Good. Keep going. Good. A person who's ignorant, right? Innovation is there, but the person's ignorant. Person doesn't know. Keep going.
Person is just an active listener. He's following it, but he doesn't really know the difference or anything.
Okay, good. Then we have a person who is actively inviting to that innovation, teaching it, inviting others to it. And we have those that are silent about it and they're not inviting anyone else to it. These 4 types, we find the ancients interacting with each one of them differently and within a particular context. The context differs. So we have knowledge, ignorance, calling to it, not calling to it. Okay, good. Now, we're going to eventually hear certain texts and how the ancients were interacting with the people of innovation who are knowledgeable upon innovation and actively inviting others to that innovation, like the actions of Ahmed bin Hanbal rahimahullah and other narrations that we're going to be coming across inshallah ta'ala, because during this time the earliest generations of the religion, from the time of the Sahaba to the Tabi'un, the Atba' Tabi'in, the first, second, third, even into the fourth generation, the orthodoxy of Islam is known. The truth of Islam is something that was known and understood broadly and generally. So if a person was entering into innovation and that person had knowledge and was calling to it, you knew that you were going against the grain at that time, because Islam was very clear. It was clear, so you knew what you were doing, right? Different from today, when there are many who may not be as aware of some of the particulars of the faith. And one example that we'll offer, showing that the earliest Muslims did make a distinction between a person who was knowledgeable upon innovation and a person that was ignorant upon innovation, in that they would not interact within the same, is, for example, we have Abu Hatim al-Razi and Abu Zur'a al-Razi, who we know of them because of their work, Asl Sunnah wa I'tiqad al-Din, the foundation of the Sunnah and the creed of the religion. Abu Hatim al-Razi, he passes in the year 277 after the Hijrah. And Abu Zur'a al-Razi, he passes in the year 264 after the Hijrah. So these are from the earliest periods of Islam. This is more than 1,000 years ago from today. And if we were to ask, what is the view of Ahl Sunnah, of Orthodox Muslims, historically to present, concerning the person who says the Quran is created, what will we find the Muslims stating? What do we find scholarship stating from that time all the way till today? If a person says the Quran is created, what do we think they would say? What did they say consistently? The person would not be Muslim, that this person is a kafir. If you say the Quran is created, that's true. Why?
Because it's one of the foundations of our deen, and believing in the Quran.
Good. Believing in the Quran is one of the foundations of our religion. Keep going.
Belief in the word of Allah, that the word of Allah is true,
Mhm.
and that the Quran is complete.
Mhm.
One of the foundations of the deen.
Word of Allah is true. The Quran is complete. Good. The Quran is the speech of who? The speech of Allah. And speech is one of Allah's attributes. And there is nothing from Allah's qualities that are created. So if you're saying the Quran is created, you're saying the speech of Allah is created. And if you're saying a quality of Allah is created, you're saying that Allah Himself is created. And to say or believe that Allah is created is tantamount to kufr. Kufr. This is what we find the ancient Muslims saying all the way to present. This is what scholarship states, and it's very clear to understand. Okay, good. Even still, on this particular issue, Abu Hatim al-Razi and Abu Zur'a al-Razi, rahimahumullah, they mention, وَإِنْ وَقَفَ فِيهِ جَاهِلًا, and if a person were to fall into this out of ignorance, عُلِّمْ وَبُدِّعْ وَلَمْ يُكَفَّرْ. This is innovation. This person, however, is to be taught, and this person is not deemed to be a kafir. You see that? This person has fallen into innovation, but this person is to be taught, and this person is not deemed to be a kafir. So when scholarship historically is saying that this is kufr, and the person that says this or believes this is a kafir, If we're to treat all people of innovation the same, then why make this difference an exception for a person that's ignorant? You follow? Good. When you look to how the ancient Muslims actually interacted with the people of innovation, you will find that they made distinctions between the different situations of people, and they didn't treat it all the same, and they didn't treat those people all the same. Okay. Um, Much of the stronger statements and these stronger narrations that we may have come across, or some of what we will eventually hear, such as what Ahmed ibn Hanbal rahimahullah ta'ala will be stating and others from the ancients, that much stronger speech would be targeting which of the four categories? The one that is knowledgeable upon innovation, and or the one actively calling to innovation, right? Because you know what you're doing, you know what Islam actually is, and then you're choosing to say and teach other than Islam. You are attempting to make Islam other than what it is. That's heterodoxy. That's something that's completely different, right? That's actual and true deviance, right? Different from a person who simply doesn't know. Okay. Now, when it comes to the issue of taking knowledge from a person of innovation, because just because a person has innovation with him or her may not negate their scholarship, may not negate their contributions to Islam, right? Maybe there's some knowledge with them that we may be in need of. So then how do we deal with that? What do we think Islam has said, and what do we think the ancient Muslims of the past and scholarship has stated concerning taking knowledge, learning from a person of innovation, a person that's innovated into the religion of Islam? What do we think? Is it something allowable? Is it something not allowable? Is it discouraged? Is it something haram? Is it something encouraged? Is it obligatory to take knowledge from such a person? What do we think?
I think it may be maybe something that
Alaikum assalam.
maybe something that they say is discouraged, but it depends on what the innovation was. Like,
Okay.
thicker beats might be, an innovation. So if someone uses thicker beats, then that takes away all of their scholarship level, and you can't take anything from that person. I'm not sure if that would be the stance that they would take.
Okay, good. So, over the course of the past 3 decades or so, for those of us that have entered into these issues, you would know that we've been broadly taught to abstain from the people of innovation, to not take any knowledge from them at all, to shun them and turn away from them and boycott them, things of this nature. And we're not saying that that is not true, because it is and it has its place. But we should be aware of the views of the ancient Muslims of the Salaf on this issue actually. They had 3 different views on this issue, on taking knowledge from a person of innovation, an actual person of innovation who has knowledge upon the innovation and may be actively calling to that innovation. They had 3 views on this issue. View number 1, to absolutely not take any knowledge from such a person of innovation. It is expressly prohibited in the absolute and unrestricted sense. And this is the view of ancients such as Ibrahim al-Harbi, rahimahullah ta'ala. But what we also must be clear on, and I really wish that my voice was clearer to make these points, and that my voice wasn't such a distraction today. What we should also be clear on is the reason why this stance was taken. Those who took the view that you cannot take knowledge from a person of innovation in the absolute and unrestricted sense is because of lying. Because of lying. And because they took the view that every person of innovation is a liar, It is not possible for a person of innovation to be a person of innovation except that they are a liar. And if the person is a liar, then we cannot take knowledge from that person. Okay? Good. Understand that the matter is resting on whether the person is known to be truthful and credible or known to be a liar, more so than the innovation itself. This is view number one. There are two other views as well. Sheikh Hamza.
I kind of think that during that time, people would just stand up and start talking, and a crowd would gather and listen to them. And you don't know that person, you don't know that person's an innovator. But maybe when that person starts lying, if you have some knowledge, you should maybe walk away. But some people are going to stay there and listen to that person.
Sure.
And listen to, his lies and twisting of the truth.
Sure. Sure.
And I think that kind of still happens today. But I think that's even when the Shiite stuff came out.
Right.
People listened to that and people started following that, and then you have a whole country following that.
Right. View number two on the issue is that if the person, now we're talking about people of knowledge now, right? Bona fide scholarship. If the person of innovation is known to be truthful, and otherwise credible, then we can take knowledge from that person. This is the view of Ash-Shafi'i, rahimahullah. This is the view of Ali ibn al-Madini, rahimahullah, and others from that time frame. Again, the issue resting on qualification and whether the person is truthful or known to be a liar, more so than the innovation itself. Okay? Then there's a third view on the issue. The third view on the issue mentions whether the person is known to be a caller to that innovation or not. Whether the person is known to be a caller to that innovation now determines whether we can take knowledge from that person or not. And or if the knowledge that the person is conveying is something that supports their particular innovation, then we wouldn't take that knowledge from them. Okay? And for this reason, you will actually find in the books of Hadith, in the Asanid, in the chains of transmission, for example, in the Sahih al-Bukhari, you will find narrated, for example, that may have had tashayyur with them, or may have had i'tizal, some of the beliefs of the Shia or the Mu'tazila with them, or some leanings towards the views of the Khawarij with them. And yet, we have al-Bukhari, who is of the highest caliber of Hadith scholarship and Hadith scrutiny that we have in the history of Islam, amongst other Hadith scholars of the day, that they would make these distinctions and then determine whether this is a type of knowledge we can take from this type of person or not. They would make these distinctions. And you don't have to look far. If you take the time to enter into what is called the field of Mustalah Hadith, the field of Hadith terminology, you'll find this detailed out. And if you want a particular source, then look no further to Nukhbatul Fikr of Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, rahimahullah, and how he details the issue of taking knowledge from a person of innovation. He doesn't just say one thing and make one blanket statement. He looks at it academically and categorizes it. And also look to his explanation of his own book, Nuzhatun Nadar. You'll find details there. We state all of this to understand the terrain that we're operating in. And again, this is even if the person is actually a person of innovation anyway, because many times we find ourselves in predicaments where we take the principles that we have for the people of innovation and then we apply them to people of Sunnah. And this is something that is expressly prohibited to do. We cannot take the principles for people of innovation and then apply them to a Sunni Muslim and then treat the Sunni Muslim as though the Sunni is a bid'i, as though the Sunni is a person of innovation when this person is not. There are different principles in place when the person of the Sunnah makes an error, if it is actually even an error. Sometimes people of Sunnah have different views on an issue where Islam has left room for there to be a difference of opinion on a given issue. So if a person has a different view than you on an issue, that doesn't necessarily make them wrong, and it definitely doesn't make them an innovator because they take a different view than you on an issue where Islam has left room for, and there is evidence for that particular view. Even in affairs of minhaj, even in affairs of methodology, even in affairs of da'wah, even in affairs of apologetics. Sometimes the principles of the people of innovation are utilized on or against a person of Sunnah, and that person is not even wrong. The person may be actually right, but this person just doesn't have the knowledge that this person has to understand how they're right. Ignorance is not evidence of anything, and ignorance is definitely not evidence of innovation. We understand where we're going here. Okay. We should also state, as we stated last week, the origin of the Muslim is Sunnah or Bid'ah. What's the origin of the Muslim? Sunnah. The origin of the Muslim is Sunnah. So if we know nothing about the Muslim, we haven't met them, we haven't seen them, we haven't interacted with them, we're just coming into contact with them or heard of them, or we don't even know them yet. Our initial position is that they are people of the Sunnah. Whether they have knowledge of it or not, whether they've been exposed to it or not, but our position is that they're people of Sunnah. And if we see something from them that is in opposition to the Sunnah, then our first stance is that, well, then they simply don't know. They haven't had the exposure, or they've had some teachers or teachings that have given them other false impressions. But if this person really understood and knew what the Sunnah was, this person would be a person of Sunnah and follow Sunnah. That's the positioning. Until such time that otherwise is proven to us, and we have established the hujjah in that regard, and we have established the evidences in that regard. In establishing the hujjah, I believe we spoke about those details way back when we were studying the 4 principles. There are 6 points that must be in place in order to establish the hujjah. We won't reiterate that at that time for sake of length, but we covered that. Okay. And without establishing the hujjah, without establishing the evidences against the person, we can't place the hukum on that person. You can't place the verdict on that person. Maybe you can say this statement is a statement of innovation. The action is an action of innovation, but you can't say this person is an innovator until the evidences have been established against that person. There are 6 points. And if those 6 points are not in place, then we can't apply that particular verdict. Does that make sense? Okay, good. And if this is in fact actual innovation, and we have established the hujjah, then the people that are qualified to make that verdict, the people that are learned and studied and know how to apply these verdicts, the responsibility of that then falls on them. Falls on them to apply this verdict to say this person is an innovator, this person is an infidel, this person is a kafir, this person is a fasiq, this person is a degenerate, delinquent. Why? Because when you're placing the verdict on a person, what you're saying is that the hukm with Allah, the verdict with Allah, that this person is an innovator. Because we're speaking about the ahkam of Islam. These are the laws of Islam, the verdicts of Islam. With Allah, this person is a degenerate. With Allah, this person is a kafir. Right? How you know that? How you know with Allah, this person is this or that? You follow? So this has to be something that is done reluctantly, gingerly, and done when there is a need to do so. And you are certain, or as close as to certain as you can get, that this is the verdict for this person, and there is a need for you to apply this verdict to this person. You see, this is why scholarship is needed in order to make these determinations, weighing out the benefits and the harms in given situations. Okay. But since we mentioned it, establishing the hujjah like what? Meaning that this person is aware and knowledgeable about what this individual is doing. This individual is pubescent. This individual is beyond the age of puberty, meaning in Islam, this person is considered to be an adult. Mukallaf, right? This person will be held responsible in front of Allah. And so on number 2. Firstly, the person is knowledgeable. Secondly, mukallaf. This person is responsible in front of Allah. Responsibility in front of Allah, meaning this person will be held to account for their actions on the day of resurrection. Meaning this person is aqilan balighan. This person has their proper mental faculties operating, and the person is beyond the age of puberty. In Islam, this person is an adult. This person is doing this of their own choice. Person is doing this of their own choice. This person is doing this on purpose. It's not a mistake. On purpose. Of their own choice, they weren't forced. The person remembers at the time that the statement was made or the action was done. Sometimes we forget. And the person cannot be one who has fallen into a shubha. The person cannot be one who has fallen into a doubt concerning this matter of Islam. And what we mean by doubt is sometimes there are evidences, and the evidence is there, and we believe we understand what the evidence is saying. We believe we understand what the verse is saying, what the hadith is saying, what the companions were saying, what Islam is saying. But in fact, we're misunderstanding it. Even though you know the verse and you think you're following the verse, or the hadith, or the statement of the companions. But you have a misunderstanding or a misapplication somewhere. It's a shubha. It's a doubt. You can't be a person in that state. So these things have to be put into place and or removed. If any one of these 6 is not in place, the hujjah is not established. The person is not knowledgeable. The person is ignorant about this particular issue. Hujjah not established. You can't apply the hukum. The person is not mukallaf, is not held responsible in front of Allah. You can't apply the verdict to that person. This person is not doing it of their own free will. This person is being coerced in some way, in some form, pressured or forced. Can't apply that verdict. The person didn't do it on purpose. It was a mistake. Slip of the tongue. Person forgot. Can't apply that verdict. Right? Likewise, shubha. Can't be a person that's fallen into a shubha. Can't be a person that's fallen into a doubt. Okay. Now, we're drilling down on this particular point because of the fact that we want to be very clear when we go into the books of the ancients, what they're actually saying, the context they're saying it in, and who it applies to. Because as we stated earlier, when we're studying the field of Aqidah, when we're studying the field of theology, typically we work backward. We work through the curriculum that scholarship has developed of these particular writings that are nearer to our time and that speaks the language of our time and is speaking to the scenarios in the context of our time. And then we gradually work backward. And then we work through some of the writings that existed on this subject during the medieval period of Islam until finally we work our way back to the most ancient books during the time of the Salaf. If we work that way, by the time we get to those books, we will know the proper context in which to understand their statements, who they were speaking about, and who they were applying it to, and to what extent, and what scenarios, and what atmosphere they're applying these different things. And not looking at what they're saying, thinking about our atmosphere and our circumstances today, and just overlaying one on top of the other, when in fact the atmosphere and the context may be different, and it often actually is. Okay. In this regard, we have some statements here that we'll take. Well, looks like we kind of said that already. Looks like we kind of said all of that already. So we'll take some of these statements. On Anas, and Anas here is Anas ibn Malik, who is a Sahabi, who during the time of the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was amongst the younger companions. But what we stated was that innovation began to emerge at what time frame in Islam? What time period does innovation start to really rear its head? Huh? Okay, good. Toward the end of the time of the Sahaba. So we're getting ready to listen to a statement of Anas ibn Malik, and he's going to speak about innovation and deviation. So if he's speaking about this now, he must be much older. It's toward the end of the time of the companions. Because if he was from the younger companions and he's now older, that means the older companions have already now started to pass away. Does this make sense? To understand what's going on. Okay. A man came to him and said to him, "O Abu Hamza, I met a people who they lie about the shafa'ah. They lie about the intercession. And they lie about the punishment in the grave." Now, notice, he's stating that they lie about it, just like we mentioned earlier. Okay. They lie about the intercession. They lie about the punishment in the grave. So he said, such people, they are kadhabun. Such people, they are liars. Do not sit with them. Do not sit with them. Pathological liars. Do not sit with them. Ibn Abbas, may Allah be pleased with him, he has a statement, pleased with him and his father. And Ibn Abbas is now speaking about the people of innovation. But Ibn Abbas also, during the time of the Messenger of Allah, was from the younger companions. But if he's speaking about people of innovation now, he must be much, much older now, right? They are the ages now where the many Muslim companions were during the life of the Messenger of Allah, and shortly after. He states, "La tujalis ahl al-ahwa." Do not sit with the people of desires. And we spoke about the meaning of hawa, the desire of hawa, last week. This is a synonym here for innovation. Do not sit with the people of innovation. For sitting with them brings about illness of the hearts. And Abu Jawza, and he is from the senior tabi'un, the senior successors, second generation. He said, for ape and swine to be my neighbors is more beloved to me than for any one of them to be my neighbors, from the people of desires, innovation. Al-Fudayl ibn Iyad, rahimahullah, he states, La tajlis ma sahibi bid'ah. Do not sit with a person of innovation, for I fear the curse of Allah descending upon you. Um, Two men from the people of innovation entered upon Muhammad ibn Sirin, also from the successors, second generation Tabi'un. And the two of them said to him, O Abu Bakr, can we convey a hadith to you? Hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Can we convey a hadith to you? He said, La, no. They said, can we recite to you a verse from the book of Allah? What do you think he said? No. He then said, either the two of you are going to get up or I'm going to get up. I'm out. You're going to leave, I'm going to leave. So then the two of them left. So then some of the people said to him, O Abu Bakr, it's Muhammad ibn Sirin, what will be wrong if they simply recited a verse from the book of Allah to you? He said, I am fearful that if the two of them were to recite a verse to me, that the two of them would cause me to deviate, and then my heart deviates because of that. And we have here on Abdul Razak that he said, Ibrahim ibn Muhammad ibn Abi Yahya said to me, I see the Mu'tazila with you a lot. I see them around you a lot. So I said, nah, yes, they're here, they're around. And they claim that you're from them. And they claim that you are from them. So then he said, why don't you come in this back room over here so I can talk to you? Right, we understand the language. So I said, no. He said, why? He said, the heart is weak, and this religion is not for people who are extreme. The heart is weak, and this religion is not for people who are extreme. We have here another statement, as was said to Al-Awza'i, rahimahullah. And these are very strong names of piety and scholarship early in the early period of the history of Islam. These aren't lightweight names that we're talking about. Right? These are people that even madhahib were constructed after them. Right? Like Al-Awza'i, he was the leader of the people of knowledge in the region of Sham during that time. And the madhab was constructed after him. It just didn't survive. Right? His statement. A man said to him, I sit with the people of Sunnah and the people of innovation. So then he said, Al-Awza'i said, this is a person who wants to equate between truth and falsehood. Between truth and falsehood. Sheikh Hamza, you have a question?
When the two brothers, innovators, went to Abu Bakr, and he knew they was innovators, why did he lock them up?
Oh, this was, no, Abu Bakr, Muhammad ibn Sirin.
Oh, this is,
second generation. This is after the first generation.
Even though when that time happened, when those two guys again went to Abu Bakr and said, I want to quote the Quran and Hadith, Abu Bakr knew they was innovators though, right?
Yeah. That's why he said, that's why Muhammad ibn Sirin, Abu Bakr, Muhammad ibn Sirin said to them, you two stand up or I stand up. Right? I'm not going to sit here and do this with you.
But he let them go.
Or you want them to get locked up and killed and all that, huh?
I mean, that's a strong, something real strong against Islam. And these two people are spreading Mm-hmm. There's a lot of ignorant people out there, a lot of uneducated Islam people back during that time.
Let's talk about it.
There was only one. How many people was memorizing the Quran?
There were a lot.
People had the Quran to memorize or to know all the Hadith.
A lot. There were a lot at the time. So okay. Muhammad ibn Sirin is in the seat of scholarship. He's not the police. He's not the government. He's a scholar of Islam, right? So if we're going to say to lock such people, to lock them up or to punish them or to take their lives and things of that nature, and some of that did take place, whose authority is it to make that decision and take that action? The Khalifa. These are people of scholarship. Anas ibn Malik wasn't the Khalifa, right? Ibn Abbas wasn't the Khalifa. Muhammad ibn Sirin is not the Khalifa. So then for people of scholarship, during this time, when it's just starting, it's not like widespread out of control yet, but it's starting to happen and they're hearing about it, they're starting to see it, they're starting to have these types of interactions with certain people. How do they suppress it and correct it from the standpoint of scholarship? What are they supposed to do? Right, you stop it. You stop it, right? You're not going to come here and speak with me this way, because if I engage with you, people will see this as validation, right? So I can't validate it. So we're going to stop it. You're going to go away. And if I need to, I'm going to warn from you. And I'm definitely going to warn from these incorrect beliefs and actions that you're taking, right? As the case with Anas ibn Malik. You're going to deny the intercession on the day of resurrection when we have clear hadith that affirm it, right? You're going to deny the punishment of the grave when we have clear hadith that affirm it. And we're not saying that it's without reason, but the reason why they're denying it is not valid. It's not valid, right? We've gone into this discussion before. We can't go into it now. So we'll just say, refer back to our course in the history of Islamic law, where we speak to this particular point in the details of it. The issue is because of something called a classification of hadith. Hadith classification, hadith gradings that you're familiar with. The hadith is graded as, what are the classifications you're familiar with? Sahih, Hasan, Da'if, right? Good. Sound, fair, weak, or if you like, unstable, right? This is one perspective on classifying hadith. And even this, there's more detail to it than even this. When we say sahih, it's of two types. Sahih li dhatihi, sahih li ghayrihi. When we say hasan, it's of two types. Hasan li dhatihi, hasan li ghayrihi. It is sound in and of itself, or it's sound by proxy. It is fair in and of itself, or it's fair by proxy. Then when we get to da'if, there are over 80 different categories of da'if. We just say sahih, hasan, da'if, just for sake of expediting or to simplify things for people. But that's just one way of classifying ahadith. Another way of classifying ahadith, we have a hadith that is mutawatir and a hadith that is ahad. We have hadith that is incontrovertible and hadith that is controvertible. We have hadith that are multiple source narrations and hadith that are singular source narrations. Now, we may have never heard of that before, and that's okay. But those that are denying intercession in the grave, they have specific rules that they choose to follow concerning singular source narrations. And they make criteria for it that's different than the criteria that you're familiar with. And then they will say, we can only utilize singular source narrations for certain purposes, but we can't use them in Aqidah. We can't use them in theology and spirituality. Where the majority of the hadith that we have that affirm these areas of our belief are hadith ahad, are singular source transmissions. Even though they're at the level of sahih, at the level of hasan, there are acceptable narrations that we can take as revelation and accept and believe and act upon them. They're going to say no. And then they're going to deny them or say they're questionable or unreliable. That's where it's coming from, right? But detail of that, you can refer back to our course in the history of Islamic law. But these things are beginning to emerge. And these things that are emerging, many of them are intellectually particular, academically particular, like the issue that we just stated, right? Okay. The people of innovation have signs. We'll convey some of them. A sign of a person of innovation, meaning a symptom of a person of innovation, is that the person will speak ill about the people of Sunnah. They will speak ill about Sunni Muslims, Orthodox Islam. They're going to speak bad about them, make up names about them, call them things that they're not, right? You Wahhabi. You heard that one before, right? They're going to make up names from them that are unbecoming, right? Hashawiyya, worthless ones. Nasiba, you don't have love for the household of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. They're going to make up these names. Okay. Extremists, fundamentalists, terrorists. They're going to make up these names. You follow? This is one sign from the signs of the people of innovation. They have characteristics that they carry to help us to identify them. Abu Hatim al-Razi, that we mentioned earlier, he passes in the year 277. He states, "Alamatu ahl al-bid' al-waqi'atu fi ahl al-athar." The sign of the person of innovation is speaking ill about the people of the narrations. From the signs of the people of innovation is that they have enmity for the people of Hadith. They have enmity for the Hadith of the Prophet ﷺ and the people of the Hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. All right? And that's where, whether we realize it or not, some of this stuff is coming from, where you want to question the Hadith of the Prophet ﷺ and you want to treat it as though it's just mere history. And then based on my logic, I can accept it or reject it. Or you can speak ill of the companions that are narrating these hadith and then question their integrity. And then by way of questioning their integrity, then denying the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. You follow? Okay. The people of Orthodox Islam, the people of the Sunnah, they also have signs to be able to identify them. From them, a Sunni Muslim will invite others to the Book of Allah, to emulating the Sunnah of the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We'll find that they will seek to explain the Quran with the Sunnah. They will seek to explain the Quran with the views of the companions and the successors, the Sahaba and the Tabi'un. We will see that they will invite people to the sound and acceptable Sunnah of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the narrations in that regard. They have love for the Sunnah. They love the people of the Sunnah. They love the carriers of the Sunnah. And they believe that the people of the Sunnah are a pathway, a means to which Allah has preserved his religion. We also find that the people of Orthodox Islam, the Sunni Muslim, he is one that is balanced in his approach to Islam. He is neither extreme nor negligent, but he strives to be balanced between these states. Whilst they have honor and reverence for scholarship and for the pious people of Islam, they won't go to such extremes that they give scholars or the pious qualities of the prophets or qualities of Allah, even in some instances. They're not going to go that far. We're going to have reverence and respect and give them their proper due because of their knowledge, because of their piety. But we're going to give them that. We're not going to lower them from that state. but we're not going to raise them to the level of the prophets either. Such people will have a distaste for innovation into the religion of Islam, and they will want to correct and set right the people who have innovated into the faith. We want them to go to paradise too, so we're going to correct it if we can. Or the people that they have impacted, we're going to want to correct those people. There's still more to mention. How much time do we have? Not much. We're going to have to summarize some things. And we know the information we're conveying today is a little dense, but it's important we ask you to be patient with us. We wanted to read to you the entire of an article. This article was authored by the Sheikh Abdul Mustin al-Abbad. May Allah continue to preserve him. He is of the leading scholars of Medina. And his virtues are very many, more than we have time to expound upon at this time. Suffice it to say, there is no person of scholarship at this date who has studied in Medina, in the University of Medina, or has become a scholar during the life of Sheikh Abdul Muslim al-Abbad, except that they are all his students. They're all the students. There's almost no scholar in Medina except that he is a student of Sheikh Abdul Muslim al-Abbad. He's a former president of the university, the Islamic University of Medina. He is a longtime teacher in the Prophet's Masjid. He's been teaching there for over 3 decades now, over 30 years. He completed his teachings of the entire of the 6 books of Hadith in a 26-year span. And then once he completed it, he started over again, teaching 6 days a week. We'll read some of this article. Anyone that wants the entire of the article, let me know. I can make it available to you. This is entitled The Innovation of Testing People by Way of Personalities. From amongst the evil innovations is that which has emerged in this era of some of Ahlul Sunnah testing others amongst Ahlul Sunnah by way of personalities, regardless if the motivating factor behind this inspection is antipathy toward the personality that one is being tested by, or the motivating factor is commendation for another personality. Consequently, if the result of this inspection is that one is in alignment with the intent of the examiner, then he is met with fellowship, commendation, and acclamation. And if this is not the result, then he is met with his portion of criticism, being deemed an innovator, being boycotted, and being cautioned from. What's the Sheikh talking about? Well, we have in this day and time people who will test the orthodoxy of your faith based on other people, based on other personalities. So they're going to ask you, what masjid you go to? We've heard that question before. This is what's behind that line of questioning. What masjid you go to? So they can categorize you, you see. Okay, so what people are you around? Do you know brother so-and-so, brother so-and-so? What do you think about this teacher or that teacher? And then based on the answer that you give, your Islam is orthodox or is not orthodox. You're a Sunni or you're a non-Sunni. Testing people by way of personalities in and of itself is an innovation in Islam. It's not something that has existed throughout the history of Islam. It just hasn't. The only thing that we do have for the imams of the religion, for those people that are so strong in their scholarship and their piety, that they represent Islam, like Imam Ahmed ibn Hanbal, like Imam Shafi'i, right? Thus Imam Malik, right? These Imam al-Awza'i, some of the names that we heard earlier. For those type of personalities, one might say, if you find a person having love for a Shafi'i, no, this is a person of Sunnah. If you find a person having hatred for a Shafi'i, notice a person of innovation because of who Shafi'i is and what he represents. Not for you and I 1,000 years later on the ground. This wasn't applied that way, right? Okay. Additionally, here are some quotations from Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah. In the forefront of them, there is the classification of innovation for testing people by way of personalities. Ibn Taymiyyah says this is innovation. Testing people by way of personalities due to antipathy toward them. And in the conclusion of them, these quotations, is the declaration of innovation upon inspecting by way of other personalities due to commendation of them. We can't take all of these quotations right now. We'll see if we can find one. And it is not for anyone, Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah, it is not for anyone to elevate a personality for this ummah, for this Muslim civilization, other than the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That his methodology is called to, and fellowship and enmity is based upon that, meaning the personality. There is no speech that is raised for them, that fellowship and enmity is based upon it, other than the speech of Allah, his messenger, and what the Muslim civilization holds a consensus upon. There's no personality that can stand up against that. Quran, Sunnah, Ijma'. And then we're going to take the personality over Quran, Sunnah, and Ijma'. Rather, this is from the actions of the people of innovation, Ibn Taymiyyah states. Those who elevate a personality or some speech for themselves, and thereafter distinguish and divide the Muslim civilization based upon it. They practice fellowship and enmity based upon that speech of the personality or the ascription to that personality, that place, or that organization. We understand? Okay. There are other quotations here as well. In closing, I was honored to be able to pose a series of questions to the esteemed Sheikh and scholar, Sheikh Saleh Al-Luhidan. May Allah bestow mercy upon his soul. For those that are aware, you're aware that he recently passed away. And if you know the name, you know who he is. You know his caliber and what he represented to Islam and the Muslims in the world today. These are questions that I posed to him over 10 years ago. We will go through some of these questions, inshallah, and we know the time is getting close for Dhuhr. Again, if there is someone who would like the whole of this, I also have the same series of questions that I was favored to be able to pose to Sheikh Abdul Aziz al-Rajihi as well. This is now 10 years ago as well. And if we know these names, we know the weight behind what we're getting ready to hear. But we'll at least look at some of what Sheikh Saleh Al-Luhidan had to say. This was my first question to him. There are those amongst us who wish to refrain from attending the facilities of the people of innovation and refrain from teaching them, believing that this is cooperation with the people of innovation. And I'll comment on this because it was my question. Meaning, the masajid that are deemed to be masajid of the people of innovation, for a person of Sunnah to attend those facilities, those organizations, those masajid, and go to them and teach them. There are some amongst us who will say, if you do that, you are cooperating with the people of innovation. Question continues. Due to this, we hope that your eminence could clarify to us the meaning of cooperation with the people of innovation, and how do we distinguish between cooperating with the people of innovation and calling them to the Sunnah? Those are two different things. Cooperating with the people of innovation and teaching them, inviting them to the Sunnah. Two very different things. Okay. The questioner says, this is the first question, my sheikh. The sheikh says, yes. Questioner says, oh, yes. The sheikh says, splendid. Firstly, and then he opens. He says to proceed. If what these individuals, the questioners, are stating about their approach and methodology is accurate, then this is a beautiful affair. Going to the facilities where the people of innovation are, their masajid, and spending time with them and teaching them Islam and Sunnah. He says it's beautiful. Questioner says yes. The Sheikh says, and I ask Allah, the Majestic, the Most High, to make us and them from among those granted success in giving advice to Allah, the Majestic, the Most High, to His book, to His messenger, and to the leaders of the Muslims, as well as the general populace. They should be keen on bringing benefit to others. Also, they ought to remember the statement of the Prophet to Ali, radiallahu anhu, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to Ali, may Allah be pleased with him, for Allah to guide one person because of you is better for you than red camels. Guess what? This even applies to the people of innovation, especially and particularly those that are ignorant amongst them. They don't know and they haven't had the exposure before. Questioner says yes. The Sheikh says, the next matter is related to anger. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned that causes and effects of anger. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned the causes and the effects of anger. He also used to warn against it and not allow it. A man asked him, and he asked the Prophet ﷺ 3 times over, and every time he said to him, advise me, he said, do not become angry. Questioner says yes. The Sheikh says, so my advice, Sheikh Saleh al-Haydan, rahimahullah, so my advice to any individual among them is that he acclimates himself when asked about a matter to be patient with anticipating and desiring for the reward from Allah, the Mighty and the Majestic. He tells us to be patient with who? Be patient with the people of innovation that you've gone out to teach them. Don't get angry. You're going to see some things. They're going to do some things. They might even do some things to you. Don't get angry. Be patient. For indeed, when a person acclimates himself upon patience, and there is nothing present preventing him from patience, he will find himself open-minded in receiving the question and generously giving the response. The questioner says yes. The Sheikh says, and concerning what they have mentioned in the first question, if they see an effect in their going to those who have invited them, the people of innovation invite you to their conference, invite you to give a lecture, invite you to their masjid. And concerning what they have mentioned in the first question, if they see an effect in their going to those who have invited them with regard to their accepting the advice and leaving off innovation, if they have innovation among them, then they ought to consider this a victory and success from Allah, the Majestic, the Most High, upon that. The questioner says, all praise belongs to Allah. The Sheikh says, if it is assumed that someone is not convinced about them, meaning those that have invited you, from the people of innovation, or still has a doubt over their acceptance, then he should recall the statement of Allah, the Majestic, the Most High, regarding the people of the children of Israel. Interpretation of what it means. Why do you advise or warn a people whom Allah is about to destroy or punish with a severe punishment? He's using this verse to speak about the people of innovation. Why would you go to them? Why would you advise or warn a people whom Allah is about to destroy them or punish them with a severe punishment? They said, the advisors, to be absolved before your Lord, and perhaps they may fear him. So it's still our responsibility to convey the message, even to the people of innovation. And maybe some of them will be guided. But if we never go, we don't engage, we don't interact, it's not going to happen. You're not going to absolve yourself from responsibility in front of Allah. And maybe people that would have been guided would not be guided. Questioner says, beautiful. The Sheikh says, therefore, this one is advised, and it is clarified to him that so long as he does not like to go, then he doesn't have to go. However, he is not to discourage other than himself from going. You don't want to deal with the people in innovation to educate them? No problem. But if there's someone amongst you who decides to go and to educate them, don't stop them. Question states, all praise belongs to Allah. The Shaykh continues. They should also be far-sighted, and they should make sure of the intention of those who are inviting them. They should examine them by requesting that they should attend their facility. So if you see them having zeal, receptive, and being influenced by their advice, then they go to them. And if they do not find this, rather they only wanted to benefit from them and learn from them knowledge that would be used to defend themselves in their innovation. I'm saying in the innovation. Explain what the Shaykh means here. And does not influence them toward leaving what they are upon. Questioner says yes. The Shaykh continues. This requires cultivation concerning these affairs. A person must cultivate himself regarding that which he does and what he leaves off, weighing out the benefits and the harms of your particular circumstances, right? Use some intelligence. Moreover, it is a must that they do not detach themselves from asking Allah for establishment. Perhaps there is blessing from this question. We'll read this last one and perhaps we'll stop here. Second question posed to Sheikh Saleh Al-Luhaydan. He posed the same question to Sheikh Abdulaziz Al-Rajihi. Then I'm going to give my voice a rest, inshallah. Question number 2 to Sheikh Saleh Al-Luhaydan. When they invite us to deliver sermons for them or hold lessons and give lectures at their facilities, are there any specific conditions that must be adhered to and implemented before visiting their facilities to teach them? That question clear? Let me read it again. Well, we got it. Answer of the Shaykh. No. No. He then states, if there occurs from them, if these callers see distracting disturbances upon them, they then stipulate any distracting disturbances to be prevented. And if this does not occur, then it should be left. However, they should clarify the Sunnah to them along with the effect it has upon a person's conduct and bringing solitude to his state of being. They, meaning these callers that are going out to them, they should anticipate the reward in that. They should anticipate the reward in that and seek the aid of Allah, the Majestic, the Most High. And there are other questions that we pose here to Sheikh Saleh Al-Luhaydan. There were 2 more questions that we posed, but we're out of time. These same questions, again, we posed to Sheikh Abdulaziz Al-Rajihi, but we hope that this offers some elucidation, that it sheds some light on what innovation is, what innovation is not, who the people of innovation are, who the people of innovation are not, the different categories they're in, and how we're meant to be interacting with them, and how we are to be in the times when the people of the Sunnah are the authority in the majority, and in the times when the people of innovation are the authority in the majority. We hope this includes some of the evidences that we were asking for last week. We will continue on with our study of Foundations of the Sunnah next week, inshallah ta'ala, and hopefully my voice will be back next week too. هذا والله أعلم صلى الله عليه وسلم.